Nice shot, Major.
Thank you, General. Feels like I'm really there.
Well, it is the most realistic depiction of war that's ever been made. But before we go any further, let's take a moment to give a shout out to our sponsors.
This stream is brought to you by the Games in Theory division. Do your best to get a high score and earn special perks and basic training.
And now, back to the game.
A few months back, I took another look at the multiplayer shooter Starship Troopers Extermination, which low-key disappointed me, and some nice person in the comments informed me that a brand new single-player game was in the works, that looked more in line with the Starship Troopers game we got in 2005, but hopefully better. And now it's finally here, in amongst a packed schedule of releases lately with Crimson Desert, Life is Strange Reunion, LOL, and Resident Evil Requiem, which I'll hopefully have time to do a video on soon. Begging the question, is this the best Starship Troopers FPS we've got so far? The answer is yes and no. Would you like to know more?
Would you like to know more?
Starship Troopers Ultimate Bug War is brought to us from Auroch Digital, the same team who developed the pretty awesome boomer shooter Warhammer 40k bolt gun back in 2023. The game sees you playing as a character called Samantha Dietz, in a story that runs parallel to the events of the first movie, and even sees old Casper Van Dien returning to a reprises role from the films, in these suitably cheesy cutscenes spread throughout the campaign.
Oh my god, you're Casper Van Dien from Starship Troopers.
Oh! No, why?
No.
Not that there's really much of an engaging story here, as there's not a lot of characterization given to Sammy, and all communications between other characters is over the radios in the game, so you won't be forming any close connections here. It's all pretty much there as excuses to go out and kill some bugs, which is all it really needs to be at the end of the day. Visually, the game took me by surprise, especially coming after Starship Troopers Extermination, with it taking on a retro kind of aesthetic that combines 3D and 2D elements. It kind of reminded me of Proteus at first, a boomer shooter that I looked at back in 2022, until I went and checked out Bolt Gun out of curiosity and noticed that that game also has the same visual aesthetic. It's definitely got a charm to it, and at least where the animation is concerned, it looks a lot better than the 2005 game, which infamously had really janky animation as a result of the high enemy counts on screen. And I figured that this choice of art direction meant that the game would be able to pull off what that game was trying to achieve 20 years ago a lot easier.
Carry on, Private.
All the weapons will look familiar to anyone who's a fan of the films, with the iconic Morita rifle being the main workhorse weapon of the game, along with a few other weapons like a damn good shotgun and a railgun that's good for taking down larger bugs like the Centurions. There is an instant reload mechanic too, where if you hit reload at the right time, the mag swap is sped up, and it's a good idea on paper. However, instead of it being in the center of the screen, it's in the bottom right hand corner, which is really annoying as you have to move your eyes away from the center of the screen to get the timing right, which can be super inconvenient when you've got a bunch of bugs running towards you, and considering how often you have to reload too.
Now you've done it. You've made me turn my chair.
Now, despite having the aesthetic of a boomer shooter, it doesn't really play like one, and has a bit more in common with old tactical shooters. Each mission drops you off into a large open-ended map, with a small number of objectives to complete scattered across it, with you being able to tackle these objectives in any order. These range from defending outposts from incoming hordes of bugs, reactivating bits of machinery or setting up explosives, to taking out the plasma bugs in different parts of the map, with each mission essentially recycling these objectives in some form every time. The objectives where you get to blow shit up are definitely some of the highlights in the game, along with a few of the outpost defense objectives, with one feeling reminiscent of the Whiskey outpost sequence from the film.
Status on the uplink! Give me a minute! We don't have a minute!
There's also a bit of influence from Helldivers 2 here, with there being bug nests littered across the maps that will infinitely keep spawning bugs until you lob a grenade into them. If you find yourself short on ammo or health, you can call on a supply drop, and if you time it right, you can even kill bugs as it falls down. If you find yourself a bit overwhelmed, you can also call on orbital strikes to even the playing field, very similar to Helldivers 2, with the main difference being that you have to find items that let you call on strikes, instead of being pre-equipped with them. You can even call on a mech suit as well, either as a companion for your squad or to use for yourself, and I can't deny that it's quite cathartic taking to a big ass bug with a chainsaw and a Gatling gun. The mechs only last for a short period of time, however, before a self-destruct sequence is triggered. But if you time this just right, you can actually use this self-destruct to take out the plasmas or even tankers, which I thought was a pretty cool touch. When everything clicks, the combat is a lot of fun, especially since there is more variety in the bug types than seen in Starship Troopers Extermination. You'll be fighting tanker bugs as early as the second mission, and I did let out an audible laugh when I discovered you could climb on their backs, shoot a hole in them, and lob a grenade into said hole for an instant kill, just like in the movie. I can't say that I was ever really bored while playing through the campaign, but I did feel a bit underwhelmed as well, because outside of having similar end of mission standoff sequences like the ones in something like Left 4 Dead, Ultimate Bug War isn't really a horde shooter. A lot of the time when you're traversing across the map to objectives, you'll often be looking at a fat load of nothing to shoot at. Maybe one stray bug if you're lucky until you get close to an objective. And even then, the actual size of the hordes is pretty small, with there only ever being upwards of about 10 bugs on screen at once. The higher difficulties don't change this either, it just ups how much damage you take. Compare that to the 2005 game, which often had dozens upon dozens of bugs on screen at once, and you can kinda see what I mean by it feeling a tad underwhelming. Extermination also managed to pull off having upwards of 100 bugs on screen at any one time. During the standoff sequences, you can see hundreds of bugs surrounding you, however, if you look closely, you'll see that these aren't real enemies and are just a bunch of sprites running around in circles. Interestingly, one of the developers of the 2005 game actually commented on my video for that game, and said that they wanted to do something similar for an imposter asset system, so they could have upwards of 1,000 bugs on screen instead of a few hundred, but they didn't have enough time, plus the publisher wanted everything to be 3D instead.
I'm devastated.
It's not like having less enemies necessarily made the game less fun, but it did stop it from truly feeling like Starship Troopers, and making you feel totally overwhelmed like in many of the iconic scenes from the film, like the Whiskey Outpost, which is something that the 2005 game actually managed to achieve despite its shortcomings. It's also an incredibly short campaign too, with a total of 8 missions clocking in at around 4 to 5 hours, with no co-op options either, which feels like a bit of an oversight. There's also a point system in the game too, but I never really worked out what exactly it was for, other than just giving you a score at the end of the mission, as these points aren't used to unlock anything, which feels like another lost opportunity to add some much needed replayability. It could have been cool if you could use points to upgrade stats and weapons like the clip size, reload speeds, and damage output, like you can in something like Resident Evil 4. The only real meaningful unlockables are 5 bug missions, where you play as the assassin bug for the main campaign, running around destroying human outposts, and these missions are honestly kinda shit. If you can manage to stay awake, they'll only take about an hour to get through, but there are better games out there if you want to be a monster terrorizing humans, like the 2014 Godzilla game for example.
Doesn't look like it to me.
Despite being a tad underwhelming in terms of the scale of the hordes, when everything clicks, Ultimate Bug War is a pretty good game, and as I said, I wasn't bored while playing it. It's definitely a must-play for Starship Troopers fans, and it is fairly cheap, so if you're just looking to kill a few hours over an empty weekend, there's some fun to be had here for sure. It's probably the best game we've had so far, but I also can't shake the feeling that it could have been a lot better too.